What's going on, everyone? So we're back for this new series that I want to start, and in this, I want to do this every Sunday, where I take one of your decks and we essentially talk about it and try to improve upon it or give suggestions to help new players if it's a pretty solid deck already. So in a month or so, when I get my computer back, I am going to have an Excel sheet that is able to calculate the total of each color as well as the total cost curve for the deck, so how many one costs, how many two costs. But unfortunately, my computer isn't working right now, so we're stuck doing this on my phone. But I figured it's not too bad. It's just a little bit extra work for me. So anyways, this deck was submitted by Fallen Absol, and we're going to go over it today. So if you would like your deck analyzed in the future, be sure to leave it in the comments below, or tweet me a screenshot of it, and it may end up on a future video. And along with that, if you see a deck that you like or you want to see that analyzed, be sure to leave that comment a thumbs up, just so I know that you guys want to see that. So yeah, let's jump into this. I think that was all that I wanted to say. If not, I'll have to remember later. So, yeah. Anyways, this is a red, black, green deck, and it does look pretty good, just at an initial glance. But with any deck, there's always room for improvement. So first, we'll run through the list. So there's 1 Zarko, 2 Fafnir, 4 Carefree Orc, 3 Sarg, 2 Earthcrack, 2 Pyroblast, 2 Aegil, 3 Albert, 2 Alluring Temptress, 2 Halcyon, 2 Cavalier, 4 Wandering Apparition, 3 Gluttony, 2 Adrace Disdain, 2 Deathtrap, 2 Eleanor, 3 Kingslayer Bee, 3 Fleetwing Sprite, 2 Tanglewood Druid, 2 Leilania's Call, and 2 Nature's Touch. So I did go through and count the number of each color, and that's what you see along on the side. And if you look at that, we are short 2 cards, so this is only a 48 card list. So first thing I want to do was add 1 Sarg and add 1 Fleetwing Sprite. So as I was looking over this list, I felt like it was more mid-range than aggro, so that's kind of what my suggestions are going to be like. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Be sure to leave comments down below to help with this deck. If I didn't mention anything and you think it's important to the deck, be sure to leave that down below to help not just the person who submitted the deck, but everyone, and help them be able to grow in this game. So yeah, now that we're finally up to 50 cards, we can add 1 here and 1 down here. So then I'll do a final count of the colors at the end. But I'm just going to go down the list and break down each thing. So first off, at the top, there's the 1 Zarko and 2 Fafnir, which I think is pretty strong. I mean, those 2 cards are really powerful in the game and definitely worth keeping in, as well as the 4 Carefree Orc. One of the reasons why I added the extra Sarg was to more consistently pull off the Albert Carefree Orc Sarg combo. So those are cards that you really want to see. But I think Sarg is definitely a really great card. I mean, even if you don't have the Albert, Carefree Orc can still pop Sarg, dealing 1 damage to everything, which early game can be very powerful. So 2 Earthcrack was also a really good decision for the red-black split, and I think because Earthcrack is in here, Gloss is not needed, especially since there's only now 15 red cards. I don't think Gloss would be as powerful in this deck, mostly because it's a 3-color deck, and Earthcrack does kind of do what she does as long as you roll a low-numbered black dice. So, yeah, Earthcrack is definitely a great decision in this deck. And then there's also the 2 Pyroblast. Now, I personally am not a fan of running Pyroblast if you only have 1 red dice, only because I'm unlucky, but it is still a great card, and I think it is worth running, provided you can get the higher rolls. So the red section is pretty solid, in my opinion. Not much I would change there. But moving on to black, I feel like we can make a lot of changes here. So first off, the 2 Agile. This is a card I'm not particularly fond of, only because you go -2 at the end of the turn. So it is really great if you can use it to get that extra attack to win, but I feel like in any other circumstance, he's not that great. So um, I would cut him out, and I would put in Lady Valistra, just because it has the same cost, and sorry, I guess I can't talk and write at the same time. But yeah, Valistra does put pressure on your opponent, either being a blocker or providing some offense and board removal. So she is a pretty strong card. If you didn't want to go with 2 Valistra, then 1 Valistra and 1 extra Albert is also a really good combination. With the 1 extra Albert, it's just ensuring that you have a higher chance to draw it to go along with the Carefree Orc Sard combo. And Valistra is not particularly necessary in every matchup, more just the mono ones. So, but she is a really strong card and really forces your opponent to have to do plays around her. So next up, the 2 Alluring Temptress. This is a card that I also am not a fan of, mostly because it's a 4-drop creature that only has Deadly. So my first suggestion for that would be to put in 2 Undying Executioner. It's essentially the same thing, but for a lower cost, but it won't survive the attack. But in this instance, I think putting another kind of high creature in here would be a good choice. There are already 8 creatures that are 5 or higher cost, so we're already looking at a pretty high curve in the cost analysis. But this being a mid-range deck, I think that's acceptable. So I would either go with 2 Balthios. It's a really nice Teriel counter in your main deck. But if you're not playing against yellow, it can be kind of useless. So in this instance, I would go with Bloody Baroness, just because it is another 5-drop, but she does allow for removal on your opponent's side. Yeah, my writing is atrocious on this phone, but I think you guys know what it is. But yeah, Bloody Baroness is a really great card, and I mean, if you go to regionals or qualifiers and get that foil one, that's gonna look beautiful in your deck. But I mean, it's not all about the bling. So yeah, you don't get to take advantage of that extra boost in attack with the blue dice, but I feel like it's not exactly necessary. She's already removing something on the board, and she is a more powerful attacker. I mean, your opponent's not going to be rolling 6s every turn, hopefully. But yeah, so next up we got the 2 Halcyon. This is the promo card, so yeah, it is really cool to use, but I feel like this is just something that Cavalier does better. With Halcyon, you have to discard a black card, so if your hand has no other black cards aside from Halcyon, you're not going to be able to use her effect, and you also can only add back cards that are up to 3 cost, while Cavalier lets you add back anything. So I would remove the Halcyon and either put in an extra 2 Cavalier or 2 Red Fang. So because this is a mid-range deck, I'm going to go with Red Fang instead, which brings our green count up. So yes, as I said, up above, Cavalier is a really great card, especially in this deck. Lets you add back any Sargs or Carefree Orcs that prematurely died, and could just give you that extra creature that you need to go for game. And then the 4 Wandering Apparition, that's also a really solid card, being able to go up to a 3 when it attacks a Drago Shield. The only thing I would say for that is if you wanted to run one or two Carbuncle Imps in place of a Wandering Apparition, just because when it's red Dragocross it does get up a little bit higher, and it also gains that boost in endurance, which is great against other red matchups when Carefree Orc is present. But still, I think Wandering Apparition is a really great card. Then we've got the 3 Gluttony of Albert. I think 3 is fine. I mean, you don't want to see all of them, but it is a really awesome Fort Burst when you hit it. It is really great for ending games, and just lost my train of thought. Yeah, but with Cavalier, you can discard this if you don't have enough resources to play it, and you really need a creature that is in your discard pile. So yeah, Gluttony is a really great card, and I'm really glad to see that 3. I don't think 4 would have been a great choice. Then we've got 2 Adrace Disdain. With more removal, it does seem like there is a lot of spells that do that, and I would rather be playing creatures that do that, but with this being a mid-range deck, I could kind of see why there's so many, because we do got the 2 Earthcrack, 3 Gluttony, and now 2 Adrace Disdain. So, while I do think that is a great choice, I think if any of you wanted to leave suggestions about what you could change there, go right ahead, but in my opinion, that does seem kind of solid. I mean, you're guaranteed to have removal in your hand, in a sense, just because of the amount that you're playing. And then we got 2 Death Traps, so there's more removal, but it is in ambush form, and I do think Death Trap is a great card. Then we got the 2 Eleanor for some ambush removal, or just being able to turn them off, which is amazing. If you can find the room and cut something else out, I would also add in 1 Fleetwing Sprite. Well, not Fleetwing Sprite, Mischievous Sprite. Just because that is some more ambush removal, and it does give you an extra little chance to draw something to remove ambushes. But once again, that's just personal opinion and nothing I would suggest directly to the deck. Then we've got 3 Kingslayer B, which is an amazing card. In this deck, 3 does make sense, but I mean, I like running 4, but that's just a personal opinion. And then we've got 4 Fleetwing Sprite, which is great for building up your resources. Yeah, that is something you need to run a higher quantity of, just so that you're getting those resources built up earlier, being able to play your higher creatures earlier as well, and the quicker you can pump out a Fafnir or a Zarko, the quicker you're going to be winning that game. And then we've got 2 Tanglewood Druid. So I like this in a deck that is heavier with green with a little bit of another color, just because if your hand does build up with that color, then you're going to be able to play out more of those cards. But in this deck, there's a pretty even balance of everything, so I would take those out and put in 2 Falthalas. Falthalas is a really great card. It does shut down other red decks with Invade, and if you drag across it, it does go up to a 5, which is really powerful, especially in a deck that runs a lot of low-cost creatures that wouldn't be able to break 4s or 5s. So, yeah, Falthalas is definitely, if I can spell that. There we go. Yeah, this looks terrible, but I am trying to write on a phone, so makes sense that it looks bad. But yeah, Falthalas is just one of those really great cards, and it's only a 1-drop, just like Tanglewood Druid, but it just does a lot more, in my opinion, for this deck. So next up, the 2 Leilania's Call. I do like this card, however, I feel like there needs to be more green creatures in order to utilize it. So the only green cards that would be able to take advantage of it were Kingslayer B if you were summoning it instead of playing it as an ambush, which you should really never do unless the situation really calls for it, and the 2 Eleanor. So while it is great to hit as an ambush, or sorry, as a fort burst, there's only like a 13% chance or lower if my math was correct, which probably isn't. It's been a while since I've had math, but I feel like you aren't getting as much out of it. If you were playing like Fort Eleanor or some Primate Javelineers, anything else that has a high green cost, then I would recommend keeping the two Leilania's Call in. However, because there's not really enough to justify running Leilania's Call, I would put in two more Red Fang. This way, it does build up your resources and does kind of essentially do what Leilania's Call would do, giving you that extra resource, which is what you would need if you were playing any 3-cost other color creature. So that's my reasoning behind putting Red Fang in over Leilania's Call. I do think Leilania's Call is a really great card, however, I think it needs to be in the right deck, and I just don't think this is the deck for it. So the final card on here is Nature's Touch, and while I do like this, I feel like there are better ambushes to be used. So my first suggestion for this would be to take out these and put in one other Kingslayer Bee and one other Death Trap if you want to go more on the controlling side, or if you want to go more on the aggressive side, I would take these out and put in 2 Ravian, which is essentially, it has the same condition as Nature's Touch, where you need to have a creature that is destroyed, but then you get to summon it and deal 2 damage to all of your opponent's creatures. So I think that is a little bit better. I mean, it would be nice to summon back your Zarko, but just think about how often you have a Zarko that dies. It doesn't happen quite often, and if it would be from like a Fort Burst Gluttony or a Gluttony from hand, but if it is Red Drago Crossed, then your opponent's not going to be targeting it down at all. So I don't think Nature's Touch is great, and I think Ravian is better in that sense. But with me, I do like those controlling cards, so I would go Kingslayer Bee and Death Trap, but I think Ravian does make more sense in this deck. So colors actually came out about the same after all of that, so we do have 15 green ones now. We did go down in 2 in black, so we're down to 18 black cards. And then we gained 1 red card and lost 2, so that brings us down to, or I'm sorry, we gained 2. So that would bring us up to 17. So the math should be right on that, and that should be 50 cards. Hope these suggestions were helpful to you, and yeah, if you would like your deck featured on one of these videos, be sure to leave it either down below or on Twitter, and if and I'll go through and pick one out for next Sunday. So this will be a weekly series. If there are no decks posted, I will go ahead and grab one that the official Dragoborne website has posted, one of the winning decks, just like we did last week, where we just talked about those decks and what changes I would make, but I will do it in this format with the color breakdown and writing stuff on the screen, no matter how bad my handwriting looks. And then mid-October is when I should be getting a new computer, which means I will be able to screen record and will be able to have this in Excel format, which it really looks nice. I wish you guys could see it. But anyways, yeah, hope this video is helpful. Be sure to check out all the links down below if you haven't already. And as always, thanks for watching.